Hi guys, and today I'll be playing Reaper's Goodbye, where we go through the stories of 6 strangers, basically. The night sky of the countryside is wide, empty, and often soundless. Crickets may sing, but their songs get lost in the open air, soaking into nothingness. There is no hustle and bustle of crowds, there's no blaring of car horns, just the wind through the grass and the labors of your own breath as you tread upon the unpaved road. It is said in such countryside you may come across a man with a trail of cigarette smoke behind him, his shifty dark eyes dart across the scene, but pay him no mind, his goals lie elsewhere. A cursed individual can only take company with those of a similar fortune. Fortune, you see. To exist between worlds means living tied to nothing, no home, no family, no sense of time. A man like that looks perfectly natural, wandering the emptiness of a soundless sky. If you come across such a man, pay him no mind. He will walk on, leaving only smoke behind. Oh, that rhymed. But if you meet such a man, and his eyes fix upon you, well, what can you do? What can he do? That's just how the world works. A cursed individual can only take company with those of a similar fortune. It's just the wheels of fate turning. You two just got caught in the same spokes. Reaper's Goodbye. The town smells like roasting meat and alcohol. Standing there enjoying it all is an old acquaintance. Oh, that's in French. Did I even try to attempt? No. What a surprise to think the gods would lead us to this village just to meet again. The world works in mysterious ways. I'm gonna say right? Oh, not me? If you give me a more cheerful face, go ahead, smile for me. You never change, do you? Such depressing company you can be. Perhaps your poor mother fed you nothing but bitters as a child. Ugh, so depressing, so depressing. I must drink away my sadness. Well, but I tried to attempt the French, even though I'm gonna butcher it. The man turns around with dramatic flourish. He begins walking to the nearest stall. He's been like that for the longest time. The man leads the way, babbling the whole time. This and that, it's always pointless. But he's keen on talking. Finally, he shuts up at the humble food stall where a group of patrons tarry idly. There's a bespectacled, professional-looking man, a mature woman minding her own business, a jovial old man with well-made suit, and a nervous-looking little girl hiding behind her scarf. Here's the chap I was speaking of. We can get this night started now? Ah, mon ami, don't be so sour. These poor souls missed their last train. They must spend the night without entertainment. It won't do. Let us trace stories until fate calls upon us. I personally find this so immature. Don't be such a stick in the mud. I can think of a better way to spend the night. Well, I can think of one better way. Oh, okay. Oh, I bet you can. See? What magnifique company we have. The girl doesn't say anything. And so the wheels of fate were turning. Or rather, they already reached their destination. This was more or less unknown to the 6 strangers at the stall, who awaited this train that would take them far, far away from here. The story of the lost souls and their startling tales begin now. 5 stops until dawn. So we can pick someone. Let's do it with the Frenchman, because why not? A story from me? I thought you would never ask, mon ami. The only thing I love more than hearing a story is telling one. Beale laughs and takes a long drag of his cigarette. Ah, what to do, yes. This is it. Now lean a little closer. Guardian angel. Before I was well established in my profession, I was a pitiful, penniless youth, traveling the country with little else than the clothes on my back. Not even proper threads, mind you, all shabby, out-of-season hand-me-downs. It depresses me just to think about it. Quite horror. Anyhow, you can see how unfortunate I was at the time. There were nights where I would have no corn for shelter. I licked potato starch just to quell my hunger. I did manage to scrounge up enough to move to the city in hopes that I could find more opportunities there. I rented a small apartment on the lower end. It was a cramped, dark space hardly bigger than a closet, with a single flickering bulb strung from the ceiling. My bed was a bare mattress held up by a rickety iron frame. I tried not to make much movement, lest I be awoken by a rusty creaking. Something peculiar happened the day I stumbled into my apartment. I was staring up at the ceiling, willing myself to slumber, when I felt something at the side of my face. It was like an intense heat. When humans are in such darkness, their senses heighten so that even the slightest rise in temperature can be felt. Something peculiar— oh, I was reading the wrong thing. So in that darkness, I felt I was not alone. I shot right upright and pulled at the bulb. I nearly yanked it off completely in panic. I searched my cramped room, but nothing but mold and mouse holes. How depressing. Of course, I could not possibly sleep after such a feeling, so I headed out of the accursed room for some fresh air. Ahoy, younging. You must be lucky to meet me at a time like this. Sitting on the street was a bedraggled old beggar. Her face was shrouded with stained cloth, and her fingers played across the empty air. Something you should know about my profession is that you meet a great many kind of people. Each person has their own unique path to take, and intersections like these are akin to miracles. You may walk through life lonely and singular, or you may have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So even in my amateur status, I understood this to be valuable. I burlesquely shuffled closer to the woman. Aye, you seem to be wise as well as lucky. Many a youngin walk past and pay with their lives. Wish you're lucky ought to stay alive, so I tell you this. Buy this from me for a copper, place it at your beside, and sleep with will come nice and easy. I'm completely butchering those words. In her outstretched hand, she produced a small communion cracker. Believer I was the secrets of the universe, but even I had to raise an eyebrow. Besides that, I had little money to spare. In order to make rent, I have to cut down to a single meal a day. Ugh, wise and lucky, but still doubtful. Buy this from me, and you will see it in time. Everyone on this earth is blessed with a guardian angel. When ye lay down to sleep tonight, see how the angel watches over all of us. Was she insane, or speaking the truth? Either way, she was looking out for my health. I threw her a coin and made my way up the steps. I placed the cracker on a thin strip of floor between the bed and the door frame, lamenting my lightened pockets. What in the world? I learned to fall asleep and survived on little more than crumbs. At the end of the week, the beggar woman would appear on the street corner to sell me another blessing. Parting with coins would always hurt, but the pain was lessened as my luck began to fly. Somehow my business was taking off. It seemed that the whims of the city and the wishes of my heart had finally aligned. Magnifique! But all was not so rosy during these blooming youthful days. I must tell you of, in generous terms, an old friend who was a likewise young man with little to call his own. He too was in the profession and had much to say about it. So much to say that our entire walk home was consumed with his contemplation. The same evening he told me of his new residence. The beggar later came for our usual exchange. You're living here? I sure am. I mean, where else could I go in this dump of a city? I found a room last week. Man, does it make me miss home. Younging, before you go off to bed, buy this from me for a copper. Ha, a copper? Miss, I'm not gonna buy that little thing from you. I can just buy myself a tall drink. Please, younging, you'll regret it if you— Listen to this. She's completely off her rocker. That foolish friend of mine laughed loudly at the woman and spun on his heel. In his place, I exchanged a coin for the communion cracker, where her face looked like she was mourning. It's not too late to sit? God, you're too generous. You need to learn how to say no to street people. We're hardly getting by ourselves. She might have a point. Just consider it, please. Bah, just go to sleep already. And so, just as our paths intersect, they part. That night, dear listeners, I heard something I can never forget. I was laying in my bed. Was that my angel, staring back at me? The creak of a bed from somewhere in the complex. What the heck? Hey, who the— What the hell? Hey. Oh. He's done for. The following day, I learned that my friend hadn't shown for work or so much as a word sent. Sometime later, I saw the landlord grumbling around the complex, banging on a certain door with no answer. He seemingly disappeared clean off the face of the earth. How peculiar. Then my mind wandered from it as soon as I received a letter saying I'd be accepted to a higher position with a much better accommodations. Plans were made, suitcases were packed, and Lord knows how I paid communion up until the very last day. So that's this gentleman's tale of how I lived in my early years. Insightful. I wasn't always so refined. Ah, mon ami, I know how cruel I must sound, but with time you begin to see into people's hearts. You begin to understand who will make it and who will depart. Such is the way of our chosen path. The old fool smiles gently at the memory. No doubt it gets lonely watching over everyone's past, doesn't it? C'est la vie? The other patrons looked unnerved by his tale. Oh yeah, because obviously I feel like the old lady was whatever was stirring him at the dark, and him paying her was what kept her at bay from, killing him. Oh, what am I doing telling you this? Your icy stares tell me is all that I need to know. You're just about as frozen over, but to him it's just a nostalgic conversation. That was interesting. And freaky, kind of. Okay, let's hear your story. So you want a story from me, huh? Well, I got my fair share of stories, but scary ones aren't exactly my forte. Mostly I've just got tales of heartbreak, huh? Well, maybe there's one. She takes a slow sip and sighs. How do you start these things? Whatever. It doesn't matter how I tell it. What's done is done, right? So it doesn't matter what I say. Well, how was it? Beloved Jules Spiper? I cannot read. Once there was a woman and her daughter. They loved each other very much. The woman brushed her daughter's hair every night and sang gentle songs to calm her. The time they spent together was truly the most happy time they had in either of their lives. Do you love me? Of course, Mama. How much do you love me? More than anything. You're such a good girl. Mama will always give you a present, see? The woman gave her daughter a strange little box. It was thick and heavy with a large clasp in the front. If you're ever in trouble, just open this box. Mama will come help you. Mama, I can just ask if I'm in trouble. Of course, but one day. The woman continued to sing. Her gentle voice soothed the little girl, so the yelling from the next room almost completely disappeared. When it was time to sleep, the girl snuggled close so that she could only smell her mother's sweet perfume, instead of the stink of alcohol that permeated the air. She drifted off to sleep in her mother's arms, forgetting about the cramped room where they lived. La-di-da. It's raining. One day the little girl came home from school. She scrambled up the steps and pulled open the door. Mama, I'm home. Inside she saw... Papa? Papa, with you. The time the woman and her daughter spent together was truly the happiest time in either of their short lives. With the box hugged to her chest, the girl knew those days of love were never coming back. The girl became a woman, and that woman became cold. She lived in an apartment where the scent of alcohol permeated the air with a man who wasn't her husband. They got along fine unless they didn't. The man borrowed her money and the woman borrowed his time. Hey, do you have a little extra cash you could spot me? I gave you all I had last week. Useless. You can't even lend your man a little money. What kind of woman are you? Well, what kind of man are you? You can't even keep a job. Shut up, useless. Why don't you go out and try working a little? Don't come back until you got something to show for yourself. So that was the exchange. And when returning to that cramped little hole, the woman could see that hideous man asleep. The glass tipped over next to him. When he woke up, she knew he would be angry, that he would blame it on her. She would be tossed into the night again. Drifting off to sleep, she couldn't help but mourn her mother. She was the only one who ever loved her, and she was the only one who could love. The rest of this world is just too dirty. The woman kept the box after all those years. She hadn't opened it yet. There was no point, but for some reason there was a sound from the box. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something was alive in there, was trying to get out. And more scratching. The woman turned over and tried to go back to sleep. There was comfort there. The scratching was almost like a lullaby, and as her eyes closed, she could almost feel her mother's arms around her. Another day of dirtiness, another day of pounding rain. How irritating. Their breath, I hated. The woman went home as usual. The man stuck more than ever and yelled as soon as she opened the door. It's not enough, aren't you trying? Useless, you're doing this just to spite me, aren't you? What did I ever do to you? It's not my fault you gamble everything. You spent it faster than I can make it. You don't understand how hard it is for me. Can a man try to relax every once in a while? The economy isn't so great. Still expecting to treat you like a queen of Sheba. I'm asking you to help out, so help out. Come on, answer me. What's so funny, huh? Is this funny to you? Your breath. Quit joking around. The man froze. The box in the corner was shaking. Now I would have ran out. What's that? Hey, what the hell is that? The box was shaking more and more. The man's grip tensed from nervousness. My mother is in that box. Quit joking around. My mother was killed by my father. Did you know that? She was killed by him, and now she's in that box. She's looking after me even now. You're lying. She gave me that box before she died. She said if I was ever in trouble, I should open it up. What's in it then? I told you already. His grip loosened slowly. The air from the room had been sucked out and replaced with only the sound of light scratching. The man and woman lay down and closed their eyes, but neither of them went to sleep that night. Once again, the woman was forced to go out and look for work. She brushed her hair, applied her makeup as the man smoked a cigarette, his eyes stuck in the box. You said when you're in trouble you should open the box, right? That's what my mother told me. Well, we've been in some trouble. She said when she's in trouble, not you. But you've been in some trouble with the money, all right? Don't you touch that box. Huh? What'd you say to me? I'm just saying we've been in some money trouble is all. I've been managing just fine. Maybe there's some kind of jewel in there. Maybe we could sell it for good money. I said don't touch it. Come on, don't you want to see how much your mother's love is worth? The woman left for work with a loud and bitter laugh. Another day of dirtiness, another day of pounding rain. The street lights flickered on. The water drop was catching the light and blurring the buildings together. The woman trudged home after a long day of work. The scent of cigarettes, beer, and sweat soaked through her. She suddenly thought of her mother's perfume, and through the rain she thought she could hear familiar tunes. My little baby? She ran as fast as her legs could take her. She ran up the stairs to her apartment and pressed her face against the door. The song could be heard inside. Behind the door, which held so many stains and fights and bruises, was an ocean of happy memories, and a world so dirty and cruel. How could you bring back those days of love? So he opened the box. That was very bad for him. It's easy. You just have to open the box. My little baby. There it was, a spider that shone like jewels dangling from the ceiling. A sweet scent hung in the air as a beautiful melody rang out. On the ground, the box lay open and empty. Please, please. Such a miracle can only make her laugh. Oh, come on, baby. Now do you see how much a mother's love is worth? And there you have it. They lived happily ever after. That's how all good stories end, right? Oh, you look upset. Were you expecting something different? Or maybe the ending doesn't sound that happy to you. Well, it doesn't matter either way. The little girl in the story wasn't me, so don't go dreaming. Once again, she acts elusive. It's just a little tale I learned off the street, but perhaps that's just an unchangeable fact. Alright, let's move on to the old man. What's your story? You've got a good eye, kid. I've got plenty of old spooks left in me. Well, when you live a life like mine, you're gonna get a few spooks. Plenty of sour times and things you can't talk about in front of children. But besides that, I got a good story to tell. It was back in the day when I wasn't so damn wrinkled. The sand casket. It's not the kind of business you can talk about, not then or now, but it brought in money and was considered real man's work. I had big dreams, and the boss said I had promise. I was naive, but still rough around the edges. It was a different time, alright. You could say I was a garbage man. I took out the trash when everyone else was asleep. Nice and easy down the beach with the cliffside. It had a sight like you wouldn't believe. I finished the job and stared out into the sea, taking in the scents. Now that I think about it, it's damn crazy that I never got caught. You shouldn't hang around those places you do business. Alright, I was caught, but it wasn't in an ordinary way. Even in my golden years, I couldn't forget what I found in the sand. I finished my business and was taking in the moonshine, but I could have sworn there was a silhouette on the shore. Obviously, that's gonna set up some red alarms. This place was pretty out of the way, so I reached for the piece and dared to look closer. Chasing the waves was some kind of little kid. Big drippy eyes and a carefree smile. What the hell was a kid doing all the way out here? Hey you, come over here. Like a good kid, he tottered over. You could tell he was raised well. Young with good manners like that normally came from good families. Hi, you little guy. So tell me, where's your mom? What? No response? You could tell by his threads that he wasn't hurting her for money or anything. He looked way too young to be some troubled runaway. He was pretty content for a lost baby. I could send him off to the police, but for certain reasons I just didn't feel like visiting those guys. You like candy, don't ya? Yeah, that's it. It was dangerous to have anybody running around during my job, but since he was just a little guy, I figured that he wouldn't be any trouble. My older self would never make that such a stupid mistake. That's the kind of thinking that gets you 6 feet under. It accidentally became a ritual of mine to finish up work and then sit and watch the ocean with the mystery child, sharing hard candies between us. What an odd pair we must have been, rowdy, no good like me, with some upper-class air, stuffing our faces with sweets. I decided not to think too hard about where he came from. I'd given up on my own past long ago. One night. That hell of a night. What? I don't understand why it caught me off guard, but the mystery kid had such a damn sad look on his face. All I could think of was driftwoods floating out at sea, or a hurt little bird. I don't think I've ever seen anything sadder in my life. Hey, little guy, you hungry? I got extra sweets tonight. The kid just kept staring out over the waves, sad as hell. Come on, tell me what's the matter with you. You missed your mom or something? Let me help you out. What's that face for, huh? I let the kid lead me across the shore. Still had my goods on me, for Christ's sakes. He ran with all the determination he could muster. We reached a far part of the beach, right under the cliffside. He stood and pointed at the ground, looking at me with big droopy eyes. My first thought was, this kid was lost his toy or something. He was playing at the beach and he buried it and forgot all about it. I did all the time myself as a kid, so naturally I pulled out my shovel and got to digging. His body's buried there, isn't it? There's nothing here, I'm telling ya. Same response. I began to wonder if this kid was playing tricks on me or what, but something grabbed onto my mind. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but sometimes in this line of business, you sense things a little better than most people. At that point, it's up to your own personal brains to decide whether or not you should keep going. I was young and very stupid, so you already knew how it went already. I shoveled more and more sand until it became dark and dense. All the while, the kid was looking at me with watery eyes. My shovel met something at last. In the dense earth, I spotted a little fleck of light. Deeper. I had to go deeper. Huh? And I thought, who's the person next to him? Curled up like a cicada shell, with a pair of skeletons. A large one with a torn dress and pearls, and a smaller one that. Thank you, mister. Okay, that was freaky. Why everyone was connected to the supernatural somehow? So that's about it. Times were very different back then, but the times treated me well, for the most part, but you got a few odd things here and there. Okay. Never did get to learn his name or how it happened. No use wondering now, no use wondering then. People disappear every day without a trace, but the world keeps turning. Frankly, I'm happy that I live in a world where things keep turning. That was freaky, to some degree. And it's just you. I'll save the little kid for last. Ghost stories. Oh well, no I haven't really. You don't get to talk about the occultist stuff in my line of work, since it's very scientific. We're very factual, you see, but perhaps... The man nervously looks from side to side. Yes, well, just for tonight. Since you insist, there was this one time back in my school days. Tunnel visions. Oh god, they're all freaky somehow. It was in my college years when I found myself stuck in the rain between trains. I studied late and neglected to keep track of time. Indeed, the trains went on without me. I had ended up beneath the street lamp with my umbrella doing little for the intensity of the weather. Looking out, I could hardly see anything except the shine of wet gravel in the fog. Hoy, are you lost? A voice rang out into the night. I couldn't tell if they were beside me or not. They sounded like a man about my age. I still couldn't see them. Follow the tracks. If we go through the tunnel, you won't have to bother with the train. But the train... These tracks have been abandoned for years. Come on, let's go. I would never trust a stranger. Indeed, there were tracks in front of me. I followed them and came to the mouth of a tunnel, where a figure stood. Strangely, I couldn't catch his face. The mix of fog and rain and darkness made it hard to see. I could tell he was too a student, and my nerves began to settle. I let down my umbrella, and we entered the tunnel together. He began to ask questions about me. The tunnel was even darker than the outside, but thanks to our conversation, I felt completely at home. I explained the courses I was taking and the dorm I was at, the exams I was studying for, and my expectations for the future. I'm going to become a physician. You sound so sure of yourself, he said. It's only a matter of time. The courses aren't so difficult if you study them properly. Anyone who says otherwise is making excuses. I think becoming a physician is very hard. Naturally, not everyone can make it. But that's just how it is. If everyone could achieve their dreams, the world might as well collapse. That's very much like you. I was confused by this statement, and my nerves were on the end once again. Did I know this chap after all? I studied his face in vain. The darkness was too much. He was slightly taller than me. Maybe he was somebody I met on campus. I tried to think of a way to catch his face. Say, do you have a light? It's a little... Aha, of course. Give me a moment. He pulled a match from his pocket. The bottom half of his face was illuminated, but I still couldn't think of anything. Despite being taller, he had an odd youth about him. How to say it? Well, normally at that age, a man begins to grow hair on their chin. Even when one shaves themselves, there will still be little pockets where their hair will grow. Now for him, it was completely smooth. There was a roundness to his jaw that made me think of a prepubescent. I was thinking too much of it, so he caught me in the act. Something on my face? No, I thought of something. I just don't recognize the uniform, so I suppose we won't be seeing each other at school. No, I suppose not. In the distance, I heard the blowing of a train. These tracks aren't used anymore, remember? Of course. We would walk along them all the time back then. We did? Well, normally I was too scared to, but you would push me along. I'd push back, and eventually we would end up walking the tracks. We walked to school like that all the time. Paolo? Yes, it was Paolo, a friend from years ago. We studied together and walked along the train tracks. Just as he said, I still couldn't see much of his face, but his voice still carried the same measured timbre as it had years ago. I was tempted to let out a laugh, but stopped before the empty tunnel would catch my voice. I suddenly became wary of my space around me as Paolo patted my shoulder in a friendly manner. It took you long enough. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten all about me. Well, I've just been busy with school. My mind's a little tired. What was that? Of course, school, I see. But Paolo just smiled at me. We studied together for some time with the goal of going to the same university. The bar was extremely high, so we put our all into it. Of course, hard work is important, but there's also a matter of natural ability. Some people are just built better with better aptitude than others. It's by the grace of God that these things come to be. Truly, it's out of our hands. Paolo, I heard a train. It must have been your imagination. How far is the exit? It is probably a while. What, you don't trust nobody? It is out of our power how we are born. So it was naturally out of my power when I was selected for university. My friend was left to the wayside. He said he would just try again and be my underclassman, but Hilo tried again and again. He encountered countless essays and repeated tests over and over, but he somehow was unable to pass. There, it's at the tunnel's mouth. It's going to hit us. By the grace of God, he simply couldn't. I fell out of contact because I naturally became so busy. You're worrying too hard. It's merely the boring, pounding rain. Please understand, I hardly had time to even eat. It was cutthroat. Our futures were just going in different directions, and some to better places than others. No, up there, a light. It's coming. Huh? I turned to run in the other direction with the small hope I wouldn't be dashed to bits, but a hand clamped onto my shoulder so hard I nearly flung back. A hand so biting cold I could feel it through my coat and my bones. Where are you going? Aren't we going to walk through this place, together as friends? I remembered this coldness. On a day with biting rain, I heard the news. After failing the entrance exam one more time, my old friend Paolo wandered up onto a bridge far after midnight and flew over the railing just as the train passed. The rumbling was getting closer. The light was creating a burning halo around him. The sound was piercing me. The light was piercing me. The other end of the tunnel was just too far away. Was I going to die? Alas, I could see his face, young and just as piercing as the light behind him. We were good at running ahead. The path always seemed to open just for you. Me, though, I could hardly get my foot in the door. Why is it you? Why can you do it and I can't? Why is it you? The light was burning me. In that moment, I was sure I'd die, that everything I had worked for until now would be smashed to bits, but then the match, which was burning down to his fingertips, split into two and vanished into the darkness. Paolo and the train disappeared at once. I was left alone in the dark of the tunnel with nothing but silence and the vague glint of the train tracks which had been abandoned long ago. And so that's the end of the story. As I said before, I'm not into the occult. Surely there's a scientific explanation for it. No, there isn't, man. He gives a resolute huff. He's convinced himself of something. Perhaps I came up a bit cruel in my retelling. I can understand how someone uneducated might see it as such. Academia is an extremely cutthroat business. If you're unable to keep up, then it's your own fault. It's not really your own fault, though. Man, Paulo was trying to kill you. Okay, let's hear your story. The little girl, who was up until now, was staring at the ground. Finally looks up with steadfast eyes. I have a story. Before I got here, before you all were here too. The tired eyes of the patrons turned to her. Before I got on the train, there's an unspoken fear in the air. Back at home, 5 passengers. Oh. What are you whining about now? There were funny things in Mama's house. A kid was looking out from the closet and walls, but Mama never believed me. The other one played lots of jokes on Mama. Mama didn't like them. You nasty child. What? Do you hate me? What did I ever do to you? Disgusting. Get away from me. I asked the other one why they kept hurting Mama. All they would do was laugh at me. Their face got all up-turny, and they laughed and laughed and laughed. What are you doing? Are you trying to play tricks on me again? Why can't I have a normal child? Doug? Mama, I am a normal child, but there's a bad child tricking you. Mama, please believe me. Somebody was playing at night. There was a big crack on the floor. Huh? No. Mama's mirror was smashed to the ground. Why are you always so mean to me? I hate you. I tried to put the mirror back together, but there were too many pieces. The other one laughed at me over and over. Everything is broken. No matter what I do, things break. I'm a normal child, so why was it here too? That night, I decided to run away. Everyone will be happy if I'm gone. Mama won't have to cry anymore. I ran to the station where all the trains are. When no one was looking, I jumped on board and sat down. I wanted to go far, far away, to a place where no one would know me. The train was cold and loud, the light flickering a lot. It was empty and lonely, except for 5 other passengers. On board there was a pretty lady looking sadly out the window, a man with little glasses grumbling a lot, a fancy man with a little mustache humming to himself, a nice grandpa who gave me candy. So she got in there by mistake. She's not dead, I would like to hope. Sweet. I wonder if this is my new home. I can get candy like this one too. Will I meet somebody as nice as that grandpa? That would be nice. Eating the candy, I counted the passengers in the car. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. Huh? What? I thought I saw 5 passengers. The 5th one was... No, not again. You can't be here. Get away right now. The train began to shake so back and forth. Everyone started yelling. Everything began to rumble, and I fell off my seat. The world turned in circles over and over and over. I was trying to be a good child. I never played any tricks on anyone. I never complained about my bedtime. I never talked back. So why did this happen? I was trying to be a good child. I never played any tricks on anyone. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, Mama. So she is dead. No! And that's how it happened. Her voice peters out softly. The eyes locked on her for now look desperately to each other. Nervously, the doctor speaks up. She's quite the creative little girl, isn't she? Monsieur, you've got good goosebumps. The doctor scrambles for his words. It's just a chilly air, all right. It's pretty late. Hey, what are you laughing at? The old man simply grins and muses softly. Oh yeah, the air is pretty chilly tonight. I've already decided long ago that I wouldn't regret anything. A man in my position doesn't get to be picky, you see. So chills like these don't bother me a bit. Truthful words, Monsieur. Very few men in this world and age understand the nature of chills. 2 older men laugh together as the doctor looks on in horror. You're all crazy, all of you. I had to get out of here. Right this instant. Where's my train at? And by curious coincidence, he is cut off by a mighty train horn. All of the faithful souls sit in utter silence. Despite the differences, there is an instant understanding between them. Time stops for no one, and the train won't wait forever. Here's your way out, big man. Don't want to miss it. The lady takes a languid sip and eyes the panicked doctor. Slowly, the bespectacled man leaves his seat and walks in the direction of the horn. And after a little while, the lady follows after him. Even now, her expression hasn't changed. The old man finishes his drink and smiles warmly. He extends a wrinkled hand to the little girl. Don't want to be late, little lady? Miraculously, the girl accepts. The 2 walk hand in hand until their figures are overtaken by darkness. Ah, how heartwarming. What a perfect way to end story. Oh, but what am I saying? The night isn't nearly over yet. But please, mon ami, can't you indulge in this temporary bliss? I know what we must do, but... There's no use in us complaining. As payment for straying from the path, you must assist Madame Fortune's grand plan. Oh, how magnifique it would be if things turned out differently. Maybe I'd become an actor on the silver screen. How would my features shine? The gruff wanderer speaks for the very first time that night. I don't know what I'd be. It contrasts to his intimidating appearance. His voice came out as fragile as a child's. I don't know where I'd be. My mouth goes blank every time I think of anything else. Maybe this was all I was meant to do. Ah, still much to do. We must go on regardless. It is said in such a countryside, you may come across a man with a trail of cigarette smoke behind him. He speaks little and keeps to himself unless the powers that be force his hand. These people who wander without home or fortune carrying a painful duty upon their shoulders. Any lost soul they find in their journey must be cut down without mercy. Oh. A life of endless meetings and partings, that is the curse of a reaper. So they have to cut them? But why? They don't get a peaceful end? But how come he's a reaper? Right on time. The last of them have been delivered. Well, almost. You already know, don't you? I too was on that train. Funny, isn't it? Even if we're separate from the rest of humanity, we can bleed like any other average man. I do it myself, but it seems that my own power is ineffective against myself. So the duty of deliverance falls on our dear friend. Think of it this way: if you leave me in this phantasmal form, I'll eventually unbecome myself. Each part of me will chip away in the wind until nothing remains. So don't be sad. Being a reaper really is a wonderful thing. We can meet again. We could trade stories and eat well. Just as we have tonight. Alone on the edge of town, in the countryside, a reaper stands with white knuckles around a handful of well-kept sickle. Spirits of the town push in and out of a train going somewhere far beyond. He knows one day he will be cut down just as his friend was. He'll exit this world as alone as he lived it. Huh? You're not dead? We will inevitably meet tragedy in our lives. Some will meet more than others, but it is said that the more dire the path, the more brilliant the miracles. The sum of wealth landing into your pockets. A brush with danger that leaves you untouched. Or perhaps it's something as simple as two lonely souls crossing paths. Oh, that's the end? That was beautifully written. Thank you and safe travels. And now him and the little girl are together. Okay, and that is the end of Reaper's Goodbye. I love this. The stories were all beautifully written, and they all had a supernatural element to it. For the little girl, it seems like something was haunting her family, or something was just haunting her in general. It was attached to her in general, I'm guessing. And for the woman's story, her mom was a spider. I'm guessing that her mom was some type of spider being. I'm not really sure. I was actually expecting the stories to be longer, but they're all short and sweet, and kind of just provided context into the lives of the strangers we were meeting, and kind of just was telling us how they got there. In a way, it didn't really tell us how they died, but yeah. Enjoyed this game. It was really nice to play, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. Bye.